Okay, got it. See in the chat. Yes, of course, I was watching it, Ron. Good job, by the way. That was close. Especially, it was just so good in many ways. So thank you so much. Let's see now. And by the way, that was early in the evening for me, by the way, Ron. So just so you know. Hey, it's good to have you on, by the way. And we have you talked today about something or other, just make up something, right? You can talk to us about. All right, so let's see participants. Let's see who's on, and then let's go to let's see chat. Okay, on the chat end, I want to put in our codes for today are going to be, I might as well tell you now. Okay, message to everyone. CME is 15339. Okay, and then it's 153, and then I'll send that out right now. And I'm just going to put Seagulls Florida. You say Florida. We just got off. It was still going on when I got up. I don't know if anybody switched over from there yet. Florida is 15338. There we go. Okay. All right, got that squared away. So I have sort of an interesting agenda for today. I think I was going to have David first talk today. When we'll talk about his mobile stroke unit thing. One of the things is, how many of you out there are using, or I guess I could wait a little bit, but I want to know how many people out there were have a mobile stroke units. Anybody out there having mobile stroke units? The reason why Ken Shepke, I don't know if he's on yet or not, was planning to look into that, I think at a state level, or maybe at the local level, I'm not sure. But he asked me if he could tell me who was out there doing it. So I gave him a couple of people that I knew that were doing it. So Clayton, you have one? Okay, got it. Doug, no mobile, okay, got it.
Paul, is Joe Holly. We have one that is currently on hiatus.
Okay, got it. Hiatus. Okay, got it. All righty. Let me write that down, and then if Ken gets on later, I don't see him yet. Ken Shepke, right? Ken Shepke. I don't see you, right, Ken? All right, I'll wait till later. But okay, but I'm just going to collect some names. So Joe, yes. Let's see. Who was it? Clayton. Okay. All right. And we may come into a discussion about this later when he gets on. That's all. Who else is there? That's it. Dustin, you have one? I told him that last night. You probably did. And I think is Rob Lowe on? Don't they have one in Columbus?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So Dustin, I'm going to put down, and then
New York City has one.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. That's
Cleveland has one.
Okay. Well, he wants to look at the pros and cons of this. Are there good things, bad things? And looks like there's a lot more than I thought. The person that has the most matured experience with it, of course, most experience with it has been David Purse. So is that Mark Gautreaux? Okay, there we go. And then so New York City. I need to find out if he wants it regarding EMS systems, or they just have them. Mostly he wants to get going. So there's one in Edmonton. Is that right, David? That's interesting. Okay. You know what? This is so easy. I may just set a survey out, that kind of thing, and then get him the data. And because I'm not quite sure how much he needs or what he needs, but that'll get us started on that. Okay. Rather than okay, got that. All right, I guess I got the okay, I'm trying to figure out what Doug is saying here. You can decide if that is tongue-in-cheek or serious. I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to get the individuals to go to. Okay, headed and fall patients to treatment. Okay, got it. All right, thank you so much. All right, so hey, Amal, you got anything for us today?
I have perhaps something on pacing,
okay,
which was recently published.
So how long can you keep pace with us?
I've got about 45 minutes or so.
Okay, got it. So
thanks.
Matu pacing. Okay, got it. All right, Sandy, you have to get off. Sandy Schneider, so let me go to you first. I'm going to pitch to you first, okay? If you're still there.
I'm so sorry. I'm here. I'm just,
I know you have a wicked bad day, as we would say up in Boston. Okay. So.
oh, this is like, yeah, this is like the day from you know where. Um, and it's only going to get worse. So a couple of things, guys. First, and I apologize if I've already told you some of these things, but my brain is frazzled. First off, ACEP sent a letter to the President of the United States asking for a summit on the boarding and crowding problem in the emergency department. We hear that has caused quite a ripple. The letter itself is absolutely amazing because it contains stories that we gathered from our colleagues around the country. It actually brought tears to my eyes, which is pretty bizarre because I've been dealing with crowding my entire life.
Yeah.
Any event, we anticipate that there will be a summit called by the federal government. We're not sure which agency, probably in the spring. We obviously, pre-hospital medicine is part of emergency medicine, clearly. So you guys will be part of that. If for some reason the federal government does not call such a summit, we will go ahead and call our own summit because the situation is quite critical. We had hoped to do that early February, but it probably will, because we're waiting for the federal government, we're probably going to give them to April. The letter is public, Fiona, and I will put it in the chat when I'm done talking because I've learned that I can't look up stuff and put everything together while I'm still talking. I can't talk and surf the web at the same time. So that's really important.
Put this in perspective that this has always been a problem to some extent, but it has totally gone off the charts, especially with mostly the staffing issues is what it is, let alone,
Yeah.
the infectious
Yeah.
diseases.
And this time, the focus is not what can hospitals do to quote help us or what we can do, etc. It's really about putting carrots and sticks in from the federal government. So things like CMS rules and having then the Joint Commission enforce them. But we're really looking at things. And for example, one of the suggestions, and we're out there looking for suggestions, is no patient stays in the emergency department regardless of what their problem is for more than 48 hours, period.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
have to leave. And that is so egregiously bizarre that we would have to say 48 hours, but that actually will markedly markedly help. The other one is that any patient, particularly those psych patients, you'll notice where I'm going with this.
Right.
Yeah, why make 24? Because we just wanted to make it so bizarre and so weird that nobody could fault us. We'll get it down to 24 maybe someday. Believe it or not.
So you're
We
thinking
currently have a patient that's been in the emergency department for 243 days.
that's what I was just going to say. Is the 6 months too long?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's clearly absurd. So one of the other suggestions, and this goes for psych, is that if a patient receives a consult or an evaluation by another service, that service must include a care plan for the patient, starting meds, etc., and must follow the patient every 24 hours. And that's really to get at the psych issue where they basically say, he needs to be hospitalized, and then they throw up their hands and walk away. So they need to be engaged in that. So those are the types of levels that we're talking about. And so I think that's going to be a very interesting piece.
Before you go on, everybody's heard this kind of from me before, but just wanted to reiterate it for your purposes, is that one of the things about CMS, they have clearly said, once we get crossed over into their territory, just it could be their driveway, if they're a patient, technically we could just leave them there if no one's going to make eye contact with us, and then we ethically wouldn't do that, of course, and that's one of the issues. But a very interesting thing from the CMS technical point of view is they say that, one, they don't cover EMS, they cover the hospital, okay? So therefore, they don't have any grain. But on the other hand, just as a side of it, when we are in the hospital, if we're delivering care, monitoring, or running fluids in, or whatever it is, they say that technically we're not credentialed to practice in hospitals. Even if you are a paramedic that works there part-time, that's not your job right then and there. So that's part of it. It puts us into an interesting position there that we're practicing where we're not supposed to be practicing. So that adds a compounds to the issue from our side as well. So just as an interesting thought that when you
Yeah.
talk to CMS, okay. So all right.
Yep, absolutely. And another one we thought would be fun, but I doubt will go through, is that emergency physicians should get paid for inpatient care for any patient that stays after 24 hours.
Right. Why
and
not?
Why not, right? I mean, the hospital's getting paid for inpatient facilities, so why not? Anyhow, we're coming up with these, but you can see that this is different than, get your discharges out by 24 or excuse me, by 2 o'clock, or, put the patients upstairs. We're trying this at a different level and really trying to engage the federal government. So that's
They're
number
the
one.
EMS level. David Purse is not on because he's unfortunately on a trip right now. But one of the things they did years ago, at least they threatened to do, was they said that they were going to sue the hospitals for theft of city services, right? Yeah,
It's
so
crazy. This
yeah.
whole thing is just nuts. The second thing to note, IFM, if any of you were at the have been following that, IFM is taking on boarding in an international level. Again, that's more for Fiona and Mick. Then the third thing on that is CMS has come out with a statement regarding violence in the in the hospital, particularly in the emergency department. So there will be more to come on that. I know it's not until May, but I did want to mention that the leadership and advocacy meeting will be in May in the DC, and I don't have the dates, but again, I'll put those in the chat. Again, with our focus now, as we are onboarding, this will probably be quite the focus for the leadership and advocacy meeting. So it's your chance to tell the legislators your side of the story about what this is causing. The last one is we received a grant from the CDC to try to increase pediatric vaccines because vaccinations have fallen by the wayside. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff for the emergency department, but there may be a role for EMS as well, because there's that time, when obviously this is not for a critical patient, but there's the time during transport sometimes where the paramedics can extract some information. So we may be looking at a role for paramedics. If you have any thoughts about what that might look like or what the potential problems might be, please let me know. Again, you all should have my email, but I'll put that in the chat. And if there are any questions.
Okay, any questions? Any comments from your end, Mike Levy, who is president of the National Association of EMS Physicians and also a doctor?
Hey, doctor.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I am a doctor.
Yeah.
Imagine that in a call like this.
Yeah, I know.
No, I think that's great. I think Sandy's idea, the vaccinations thing, just going to that. So fantastic idea. I think there's been a lot of talk about that through the years. So to bring that to some sort of fruition, looking at, patient-centric care, I think EMS is first there. So I think we might be able to help along with that. So look forward to all the things that Sandy's been talking about there.
Okay, and once you hang in there, Sandy, anything else from your end?
Nope, nothing here.
And let me pitch it over to the president over there of NEMSP. Anything you can report from the organizationally or from your own jurisdiction?
Well, my own jurisdiction is -22 Fahrenheit. No, -22 centigrade. Sorry, centigrade. I was doing this for Fiona and Moa. Yes, but by chill, it's -15. I can't do but it's, -20 is the collection point, I think, for centigrade and Fahrenheit, I think. So we're kind of getting to that unity. Anyway, it's a little chilly here. Congratulations to
How low do
Peter
you
and
have
other
to go
people
to
more
have
sensible.
how low do you have to go to get your tongue stuck on a light pole?
You know what, Paul? We need to get you up here. I'll get a video out, and we'll see. We can do we can do the Christmas story here with Paul starring. I'll be happy. I know fire department guys I can call to come get you off the pole too. It'll be fantastic. Give that a whirl. I may not join you. Let's see. We have the conference coming up January 18th. I don't have it right in front of me, but hopefully everybody has it in front of them. So it's record numbers already so far. Big attendance at the pre-cons. Sad news is that if you've waited this long, then the room block is sold out. Though we have a team of people working to get you housed down there. There's lots of housing available just off campus. We are having an upcoming December 8th. We're going to have a town hall on EMS as an essential service. There's going to be a number of Eagles that are going to be on that panel, which includes, let's see, you got John's going to be on that, John Kramer, Libby Char, Joe Hawley, and Jose and Mark. All Eagles are going to be on that, as well as other notables. And going to spend some time just addressing the idea of EMS as an essential service. As everybody knows, there's 14 states, and maybe only 13. I think Louisiana is listed as one, but in speaking with Sue Bailey, it actually isn't. But looking at that as a topic and how we get there, whether that's really something we want to fight for, is there a there? It's going to be a great discussion. So I hope everybody will tune into that. I will put a link in the chat for the seminar itself.
Good.
So that's kind of the top of mind thing. We have a weekly meeting with the Boundary people and with the FDA that we attend, which has been a great opportunity to at least see with, I think Jim Augustine set that up to begin with, but fantastic insight into the drug shortages and at least the government's attempt to help us get past some of this structural problem itself. Those are kind of top of mind things with NMASP. Thanks everybody for all your help and all your work on our committees and the like. And it's good seeing everybody.
Then you stay on the board when you turn over the reins to Jose, right?
I do. There's a place where they stack dead presidents, and I have a slot there. So it's 6 or 7 or 8 down from you, I think, but it's a little place where they archive us.
That's right. I think I was the first one, right? Oh, I guess Ron would be that. I'm only number 2. That's great. That it is amazing. The group of people. It really is fun when you get them all together. So it really is nice. And thanks for arranging that, by the way, last year, or whatever it was the year before. Okay. Let's see now. And so you are up in Anchorage now, I presume, right, Mike? Yeah.
Yeah, I just got back into town yesterday, and it's beautiful, clear, cold. Mountains are all lit up with snow. Fantastic. Come visit.
And you can see stars. You can see Vega, right? And whatever. It was amazing. Last night I was out, and we were clear here in Dallas, and I could see Jupiter, Mars, Uranus, even Mercury and Venus were on the other side of the world. But it was a spectacular night. I love it when it gets cold and clear, so it's good for that purpose.
Well, Paul, when you come up and once we get your tongue free, I've got a hot tub out on the deck where I do just that. We stargaze, and then quickly try to get back inside.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, right. That sounds good. Do they have those things called robes there?
Well, me and the kids actually used to do what are called burritos. So you get in the hot tub and warm up, and then you run out and roll in the snow, and you're kind of covered with snow, and then you jump back in the hot tub.
And are they still all alive and mentally working well?
Yeah, randomly missing a few digits and stuff, but you know how that goes.
That's
you just wait till the frostbite demarcates, and then you pull it off with pliers. It's the usual thing.
So didn't qualify as child abuse in Alaska then, right?
Business as usual.
That's great. All right, I'll have to remember the burrito trick. That's really good. Good for you. All right. Well, listen, let's move on then. And let's see, who would I'm trying to think. There was somebody else I wanted to go on before I go over to Arnold. Well, Ron Roth, why don't I go ahead and talk to you about that game last night, right? You want to give reports on that? Ron, are you there, Ron Roth?
Yeah, I'm just happy we won.
Okay, got it.
We're not used to not making the playoffs, but
Yeah.
I do have an interesting case we had 2 nights ago.
That's what I wanted to hear about. So go ahead.
Fellow was driving down the road and hit a utility pole. EMS arrived to find him entrapped, and looking in the car, he was impaled by a 3-inch diameter metal pole that went through and through his abdomen. Our doc got there, they started blood, they had to cut the pole on either side of him, took him to obviously a trauma center, went to the OR, and he missed all internal organs.
Wow, how's that possible, right?
He had a couple other injuries, but
And no spine or anything like that, right?
No.
That's amazing. So pretty, how large,
We-
how is the diameter of the pole?
a 3-inch metal pole.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, got it.
Hey, Ron, we had a similar guy came off the interstate, went through his, the roof of his car. And then through him, we called him a shish kebab because he was impaled with the back of his seat. So they had to cut it off at the back of the seat and then
Ah, wow.
and hand breadth from the front of his chest. He lost a lobe of his hip of his lung, and he wanted to be called Spike after that. So
Oh,
just an idea.
yeah, okay. It's good.
Thanks for the tips.
Yeah. You guys are too much. All right, well, listen, one thing though, I wanted to ask about that case, you gave the blood, was there indication for it or just sort of preemptive? What was the indication for why did they decide to give the blood then? Was there something, had he bled anywhere?
Yeah, he was hypotensive to the 80s and
Ah.
tachycardic in the 140s.
Oh, okay, got it. So did he hit a vessel then somewhere? Do we know? You said he
I'm not
did-
sure.
didn't hit major organs, and I don't know how you could even do that without hitting some part of the bowel, but that's amazing then. Okay, well, it's a very interesting story then. That's good. And anything else new happening in your system? Anything you're doing right now that you're changing or looking at, or you're having a problem with?
No, same
Okay.
things.
Well, good.
have
So
no
everything's perfect in Pittsburgh, the P&B. Okay, that sounds good
You know,
then.
we are boarding like everyone else and delays, offloading, just like everyone else.
Hey, are the RSV things falling off? And just, latest things I've heard is that flu cases are outstripping COVID cases. And I was going to hope our ID people could talk about that a little bit, but anything else, or is it about the same in terms of RSV kids? Because you guys are, intimately involved with children's.
Yeah, our children's hospital's overwhelmed with 8-hour waits in the ED.
Mhm.
And they have a tent that they build outside to house some people.
Ah, jolly. And it's getting colder up there too, as well, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, thanks then for filling us in on what's going on there. I'm looking around to see if Dr. Shepke has showed up yet. I don't see him quite yet. Okay. So let's move on over to Corey real quickly, because Corey, you usually have to get off. Anything to report from Nashville?
No, I had a meniscectomy. I'm going to be back at yoga soon. Other than that, EMS is doing great.
Oh, no. Okay, good. Which side, the left or right side?
Left medial.
Okay, got it. All right, good. Then you're in good shape. They like to tear that part off.
They
I
said
love it.
my cartilage was like someone half my age, but they had CT scanned my head, and they said my cortex was about equal to someone twice my age. Kind of depressing.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks a lot then for the report, etc. And again, any project that you're working on in Nashville right now, or anything we should know about?
No, I'm embarrassed to say we don't have anything exciting going on that other
Okay.
people aren't doing or have already completed.
Okay, cool. I just want you to know is I just wrote you up in a report that I'll tell you about offline sometime, right? It has to do with the great work that Jared and Jeremy are doing. So I'll tell you later, okay? So thanks a lot. Let's see now. Who would I want to go? There was someone I wanted to go to before I go to Amal. Well, let me raise this question. One of the things, I may send this out as a survey quickly, but I want, as we go through this talk here today, I'm supposed to write a end of the year report for the CME purposes. I'm supposed to write an end of the year report on, was this worthwhile? What was a good topic? Did you change your practice at home, based on what you learned here? So I guess I get a list of some of the things we talked about, but if you can remember anything that you learned on this call that changed your practice or helped you in any way, that I can put into my report, that here are some of the things. I could give them 10 or 15 of them. That'd be great. It's like, like one of the things that you brought up, Corey, that's what made me think about it, is that, when Crawford gave his report on the xylazine, we were going, what? Okay. And so that's an example of, the kind of things we learned something and it helped us change our practice or at least reevaluate what we're doing. And I think that
And for sure, add the double sequential defibrillation that Sheldon
Okay.
presented.
Okay, got it. Let me, and that's just recent stuff, but I got to get it for the year. But if anybody can think of things that you think you changed or what you learned from this, whether it's from COVID or, whatever we were talking about, or, did you learn something about hospital wait times for the ambulance, ramping or whatever it may be, it would be good for me to have. So DSD, xylazine, I'm just gonna write those down right now, xylazine, and try to put that, and I'll try to put the words in for you guys and all that, all those things. Anything, David, did you learn anything from this? You're so smart, okay, that you know everything. So David Miramontes, okay, right? But is there anything you could think that you took home from this?
Yeah, so I think the vaccine story is, the vaccine effectiveness, that was a big deal. We talked with Peter about the femoral IO. That was a game changer.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
Whole blood, getting ahead of the flu before the flu got ahead of us, I think was important. Those were all meaningful things.
I'm writing down wildly here. You see, I did. You're so good, David.
Shocking quote asystole. I use and put asystole in quotes because it's not always asystole, it's VFib.
Yeah.
I think those are all big ones that were, for me, were a big deal.
Okay. And then you're saying that you are going ahead and shocking, an attempt at the shocking what looks like asystole, correct?
Yep.
Okay, good.
The
All right.
double sequential is a game changer. I mean,
Okay, got it. Yep. Okay, cool.
And then something maybe on triage with the red right behind the blue, rather than having various zones, a change in response to to active shooters.
Okay, versus 3 zones. Okay, got it. All right, good. This is good. You're giving me lots of ammo here.
dead, either dead or you're red, an active shooter.
Okay, dead or red. Yeah, right. Dead or red. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. Okay, good. Yeah, but there's so many other things. Anybody else have things that you changed this past year or that you remember that was really useful that you learned here?
Yeah, Paul, I'm going to start using the EZ-IO to evacuate all epidural hematomas.
Oh yeah, that's right. EZ-IO for EPIs. Right. Okay.
And then now I know how to remove the tongue of people who crazy glue them. Was it people who are crazy gluing themselves to poles? What was that?
Oh yeah,
about?
to paintings and galleries and all that, right? Remember that? Oh God,
Yes.
it was so bizarre because we brought that up, and what happened, I had already done a whole thing about it for a chapter I was writing on civil unrest, that kind of thing, and that was
Right.
The mass gathering. So it was so crazy glue removal. Okay, got it. That's great. Yeah, we have hit some cool topics here, so which is kind of fun. Anything that you could think of that if you change anything up in Canada based on what we're doing? Is Mike Austin here? I can't remember if Mike's here or not. Okay. Anybody else have any suggestions for me or something I should put in here from, or even stuff that you did that you thought was useful?
Eileen had some great information on monkeypox early on in the when that was becoming a big issue.
Excellent. Oh yeah, well then remind me, how about you? That's right. You're alma too, talking about other people, and we learned so much from you. I'm trying to think, remind me about some of the talks you gave us that it was at STEMI Mimics, and I'm trying to remember what some of the topics were that you did.
Oh gosh, EKG stuff, mimics of STEMI.
Yeah. Okay.
We incorporated models really wide. VTAC has been very helpful.
I can look through some of my files and email you separately, Paul.
Yeah. So what were you saying there, Ken?
Amal did a talk on the really wide regular VTAC, which was basically a misnomer for like hyperkalemia and other things like that. And you should use bicarb, et cetera, on those.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, because there were a couple there where we didn't want people to shock it because it wasn't VTAC or whatever, that kind of thing. Discrimination. Okay, got it. What did you just say, Dustin? Dustin, can you get on? You said I just sent a few in an email. Dustin said there was too many to list, right? So, I mean, can you think of some of them, Dustin, that you could just say to the group?
Mine were mostly the ones of Dr. Matu. So I listed several there.
Oh, good.
Really
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. And then the other one that folks haven't specifically said are I call them reports from the field. Every time there's something really interesting going on, whether it be New York City shooting somebody or things collapsing in Florida, one of the people on this call is there and getting very firsthand reports of that is extremely valuable.
Like I think about, like you're just saying, like Joe, when you said the building collapse, I thought also about Joe Hawley talking about some of the things that they were using the dogs for, and all the various issues that he ran across when they're dealing with the floods and all that, right? It was just, yeah, it was really very, very cool. Yeah, I guess there's too few things. And I think that the literature we get from John Jew every week is like, keeps us way ahead of the curve or thinking about stuff. I thought that was fantastic too. All right, I'm doing pretty good here. I could actually write my report now. This was very helpful. Hey, Ken, how long can you stay on for? Because I was going to talk about the mobile stroke units.
Yeah, I can stay on for at least another half hour.
Okay, that's good, because I want to have Amal has to get off, so I want to get him on to give a quick report on pacing, and then what if that would be another thing I could add to my report here, right? So, which is good. All right, well, listen, with that, Ken, we're going to talk about, there's a lot more people out there with mobile stroke units than I even thought. So I think it would be kind of it'll be a very cool thing. That's it. Hey, Rob Dunn, just real quickly, since we're on that topic, you said you learned a lot about behavioral response. Can you give me an example, a concrete example of what you learned, or did it change something that you did?
Well, yeah, the rip off and duplicate, I think, is the key piece. Getting information, particularly from Dave Miramontes, about how they're doing things with alternate destinations, identification of behavioral health patients in the field, and then some of the other sites that presented their, destinations and starting opioid use disorder treatment in the field. Those are all really useful things that, I think that I can use the information about how this has been done and what kind of outcomes people are seeing in other places to help implement my own system.
Okay, good. And John Kramer, being the all-wise John Kramer, anything you can remember that you took home that you thought was pretty cool? Sorry to catch you off guard, John. I probably did that.
That's all right, Paul. I'm on the road. Not that hasn't already been listed.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, if you guys think of anything else, let me know. But I think I got a pretty good list. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I just wanted to show that it's a very robust meeting. And one of the things I do is part of this issue is like, do we change anything? Do we need to do anything? And I've talked to at least half of you, and if not more, and everybody has said, do not change a thing. Keep doing it, because I didn't want this to be me being presumptuous that we're doing it the right way, and whatever. I want to know, should we change the format? Should we do something different? Everybody says just keep it exactly the way it is. It's one of the most beneficial things I do. So I think I feel confident reporting that. So that'll be good. So thank you then. All right. Well, then let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any. So let's go ahead and move along. Amal, let's go ahead and hit it. Okay, if you can do his presentation and keep us a pace of what's going on in the world of paper.
You're full of puns, Paul. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight couple of papers that were put out by some colleagues of ours in emergency medicine and cardiology, which had to do with pacer pad position in transcutaneous pacing. Surprisingly, there's really no guidelines about what the proper position is. And this is on the heels of Dr. Chesky's last couple of weeks ago talking about AP position for defibrillation, but there's really no guidelines at all about the optimal position for transcutaneous pacing. And what these guys did was in the EP lab, they worked with an electrophysiologist. They had about 20 patients who consented to the study following a routine cardioversion of atrial fibrillation while the patient was still sedated. What they did was they attempted transcutaneous pacing in the AP position and also in the anterolateral position, just to see which one would capture more frequently, and also how much energy was required, because obviously in more awake patients when if you need a lot of energy, it's going to be much more uncomfortable and you need to give a lot more sedation or pain medications. They had about, again, 20 patients. What they found was that in the AP position, on average, they needed to use about 93 milliamps. In the anterolateral, they needed about 126. So AP tended to capture at lower voltages. Overall, there was about 20% that didn't capture at all, but there was a 42% capture rate in the anterolateral. There was an 84% capture rate in the AP position. And then what they did was they tried AP and then AL. And once they did that, they switched positions and they found that a handful of patients that didn't convert with anterolateral did convert with AP. There were no patients that failed AP that then did convert with anterolateral. So AP was more successful consistently and converted at lower amounts of energy. And also, interestingly,
I want to make sure I understood what you were talking about when you said they switched positions. I wasn't quite clear on that.
Okay, so what they did was they tried pacing patients in the anterolateral position.
Yeah.
And either they failed or they succeeded. And then they moved over to the AP position and tried it again in the same person.
Oh, the same person. Okay, got it.
Same person, yeah. So one of the surprises to me, at least, was that they found that body mass index, chest circumference, and chest diameter was not associated with success rates. And that definitely was a surprise to me. So it's a small study, but it's really the only study that has been published so far on this particular topic. And, maybe in the next set of guidelines, there might be a little bit of direction about transcutaneous pacing and preferentially going with the AP position because you can pace more frequently and also at lower amounts of energy, which is always good because that probably means you're going to need to use less morphine or fentanyl or whatever it is that you're using for these patients. So I just posted the citations in the chat for anybody that might be interested.
So where was the study done? Where are these?
It was here at university in the EP lab.
Okay.
University of Maryland.
Maryland. Okay, cool. Because I didn't recognize the names. That's what I was asking. So, okay. Well, very, very cool. Well, good. That's excellent. Anybody have any questions for him? I think that's pretty straightforward. So I just learned something new.
Yeah, it might not be surprising, but it's kind of interesting that it's never been studied before, never been published before. So it's nice to at least get something out there and maybe build on with some larger studies.
Yeah. It may be that simply the way defibrillators were built, when you did it by hand, you couldn't do it from the back. And then we just got into that routine. And now we have pads. You can probably think that it's easier to do. Like Ken Shepke does that pretty routinely, right, Ken? We talked about that last week, but it's a good way to transition over to him. And Ken, you guys, again, remind me, you guys routinely put the pad on the back end, especially.
Yeah, we routinely do AP. We actually stole that idea from John Jew because we use the Lucas device and we don't want to stop compressions if we have to add an extra vector or do a dual sequential defibrillation. So you still have access to anterior lateral while somebody's on the Lucas. So that's why we start off AP, and that way once they're on the Lucas, if we have to add an extra set of pads, there's no stopping in the Lucas or the compressions to accomplish that next step.
So basically on the in the chat, John Jew, who we just gave very great kudos to, asked the question, and that's actually one I always ask, is that where exactly do you place it? Where do you put the anterior pad, below or left, or whatever? Where exactly are your placements specifically?
Yeah, what they did in patients that had large breasts, for example, they put the anterior pad under the left breast, and that's usually where we put it when patients have Lucas devices, also under the left pectoral in men or the left breast. And again, the goal, as Dr. Chesky has talked about, the goal is to pass the maximum amount of current through where you think the left ventricle is.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense to put the anterior pad up too high. Ideally, you want to put it low enough that it might be right over top of where the left ventricle is.
And then on the back end, we kind of talked about it, it's obviously not over the spine, but maybe under the left scapula or whereabouts or on the
Sure.
scapula. Where is
Sure.
it? Where does that go? And Ken, where do you guys put it? Okay.
For the back, we whatever's the easiest for the guys. Basically put just to the left of the spine is generally how they do it. But we try to do these things quickly, so we're not like using calipers, right? Because you have to stop CPR to put the things on. So we lift them up, slap it on the back, and move them back down. With our main thing being that you have to do continuous CPR. We teach every pause in CPR is putting the patient into asystole because you're the pump at that point. So for us, it's more about speed of CPR than precise pad placement.
So before we go to Peter, John just told us what he does. John, can you come on and tell us what you do?
Yeah, we currently are placing our anterior pad where almost adjusted, really epigastric left upper quadrant. And then we're actually placing our posterior pads a little bit high in the scapula for the vector. Does that make sense, Amo? I'm not sure if we are doing the right thing, but we're trying to get the vector through the heart, and whatever. Obviously, it varies with the habitus here as well. We've been doing that for the last year, but probably 2 or 3 years as well.
So one question I would have about that, I've always worried if it went too low, would you stimulate the stomach to contract with the shock, and then cause a regurgitation or whatever? Any problems ever seen that?
We have not seen that, but honestly, we're putting an advanced airway, either an igel or intubation, in almost all the patients here.
Okay. Well, just a thought, anyways, because that's it. But the point is, get it through the heart. Okay, right?
Yeah. We've also had to modify our Lucas at times, and in other words, the position of the Lucas on the chest varies with the body habitus. And sometimes we have to move it up or a little bit down to get optimal end tidal CO2.
Okay. Well, I think this kind of is really, after Sheldon's talk and then putting these together, kind of does a good reinforcement about how to, and almost a question about, why are we always doing it this way? Why haven't we changed? It's just it's great. It just points out that it's time for us to be making a change. So I will go home and change my practice with this one, right? So, which is
Hey, Paul, I don't want anybody to miss what Dr. Ju just said. What John just said is really important, because we know if you're too high up on the chest, you actually compress the aortic outflow tract. And while it might look like the right spot, you're in the wrong spot. So before we put the Lucas on, if there's a delay in putting the Lucas, we'll slowly adjust our hands to reach the maximum end tidal CO2. And that's X marks the spot for the Lucas. That's generally how, and that's an important advanced teaching point there. Thanks, John.
Nice.
Paul, I have a comment. I'm going to funnel Lou Steinberg, who is a former fire chief who comes on our Tuesday webinars. And he just messaged me, and he said that he sent me a video link after Chesky's gave his talk on the AHA webinar. There was a Dr. Link who made a point there about that the AL pads wind up being AA, and he stressed the importance of the lateral pad being in the mid to posterior axillary line instead of the anterior axillary line, like Amal said and like Sheldon said, to capture most of the ventricle. So it could be as simple as the fact that we're not putting in that lateral pad on the right place. So I'll put Lou's comments in the chat here, but I thought that was a great comment based on what you guys are saying here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Doug, go ahead and tell us what you did with Zoll. Doug Kupas.
Sorry, I had to get off mute here. So, and this is a health system thing even broader than just EMS, but we switched to Zolls a few years ago, and as part of that, we had to make the decision as to what to retrain everybody to use, and we landed on the AP pads primarily because I'm still told that one of the issues, if there's any mattress or something like that, even if you put a hard board behind it, there's a little bit of loss of the compression in the mattress. And the only feedback device that the Zoll uses right now is the accelerometer on the puck on the chest, which might actually be collecting other movement, not just the patient chest wall. So they are supposedly in a upcoming feature going to have the posterior pad communicate with the accelerometer so that you're getting a true squeeze of the chest, even if the patient is on like a hospital mattress with a board behind the patient, et cetera. So for that reason, we trained everybody to this, but it has served us well because we've found that it is very reliable for the patients that we want to pace for some reason, that we do any defibrillation for. We just do AP for all of it.
Now, when you said in our health systems, do you mean a Geisinger's or?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm speaking with my Geisinger hat on here. Let's have to get my Geisinger hat on this comment. So we switched over to Zoll's and replaced, like our lead hospital, we replaced like 75 code cart defibrillators, and then had to retrain everybody. So at that point, we just retrained them all to AP placement, and both in the hospital and for any of our outside the hospital uses, we train AP.
All right. So the next thing, hey, Doug, since you're doing that in the different system throughout your system, I'm going to make a suggestion to you, something I've always wanted to do, but since you have the accelerometer and you have all those things, I'd like to see if there is a difference if there's a way to different, is that the effect of CPR on older people that have, who will, have their ribs cracked sometimes versus younger person, and then men versus women. Is the reason why women had better resuscitation rates because of their chest wall? Is there a compliance issue? Is it different anatomy than a man's? And it does that. I'm always trying to make sure there isn't a mechanical thing there beyond, hormones or whatever else that we've thought about.
It would be interesting to consider, because we do have, a few hundred patients a year in just individual facilities that have that specific data on them. So it would be interesting to look into some of those.
Yeah, get a young champion EMS fellow to do that, or get us the data, and we'll get someone to see if we can get someone to do it. It'd be really cool. David Miramontes. Thank you, Doug.
I just want to follow up on that Zoll thing. So in the hospital, the R series and the X series bought in the hospital use a different pad in the Zoll network than the ones we use in EMS, the rescue pads. So the ones in the hospital are supposed to only be used anterior, posterior for two reasons. Number one, as Amal said, it's the best way to pace. It's the best way to defibrillate. But also there's actually a 3-lead in the pad. So there's a trifecta of contacts in the anterior pad. So you can see a 3-lead. So you can pace just with pads. You don't have to put the 4-lead on and the pacer pads. So in the hospital, the pad is very different. For those of you who have Zoll in the hospital, you should double check what pads you use. And yes, you can use EMS pads on the hospital Zoll. You just have to take off the adapter and put the 2-prong defibrillator power button in there onto your EMS pad. You can use an adapter, or you can just jimmy rig it by putting the 2-prong power cord in there.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because that Zoll does have multiple pads. What Dave's saying is called a one-step pad. That's one of their models, and it's only the one-step pad that has this triangular pad in the front that allows picking up the ECG through the triangular electrodes and then pacing straight out of that without having to hook up the limb leads to pace. So that is the one that we use, but Zoll has other models where you can, use the we call it the puck, the accelerometer in a different monitoring system. We stock the ones that are translucent if somebody's going to the cath lab or to the OR. So, there are a number of the different pads, but my comments work easiest with that one-step pad, but they can be done with the EMS pads also in AP.
Okay, anybody else want to weigh in on this? Otherwise, I'm going to ask Doug a couple more questions, if you don't mind. Anybody else want to weigh in on that one, or is it time for us to switch gears? All right, and Doug, while I had you on, anything report from the state of Pennsylvania where you're the medical director, or any from NAMT where you're the medical director?
Not a lot of hot things right now. Obviously, lots of regular stuff percolating, but I guess the one thing I'll say from the NEMT side is that NEMT, NASEMSO, and EMSP recently did an editorial related to a case that was published by GEMS Online, and it was called "Take Your EMS Education to Church." And it basically looked at figures like David Koresh and the guy from that did the cyanide in the Kool-Aid and Hitler, and said, they were charismatic and we can learn things from them about how we can have EMS providers be more interested in our educational courses. And obviously that did not
I would say
be a message that a lot of these organizations thought was a good idea. So NAMT joined the other organizations in writing an editorial as a backlash to that. And unfortunately, any good deed goes may go or no good deed goes unpunished. So initially, what it caused them to do was link it to that article so that more people were reading the thing.
Oh my God.
And it was getting more hits. So then the author group responded by saying, well, we want you to take down your link to that other article and disable it. And so what they did then was disable the link to the article as well as the follow-up editorial. And then wrote a response that was somewhat defensive of the author's thinking and why they really didn't mean any harm when they said that in the letter. So that's out there and percolating if you hear about it. I guess the letter campaign that had NAEMT and other groups in it was successful because it caused the thing to be pulled down, but not totally successful. And that is out there if you've heard about that GEMS article.
Yeah, it is. The interesting thing though is what you bring up is the thing that has bothered me a lot over the last 10 years is how people like a Hitler get into power and all that, and how do you prevent that, that kind of thing. So from that point of view, but for what you're talking about, yeah, definitely was the punchlines were in bad taste, as they said, right? So, all right. Well, all right. Well, then let's, David, do you have anything? Because I got to get over to Ken. He's got to go pretty soon. Anything else? Do you have your hand up, David Miramontes? Or is that just by accident? Okay. I like that he's cutting his throat here. He is not hearing me or something. I don't know. All right. So listen, let's go to Ken. Correct me if I'm wrong. One of the things you're looking into is the feasibility or the effectiveness or whatever it is of having mobile stroke centers. And then you want to know the pros and cons on it. I detected several people already on the call here today, and I think it's a lot more people than I thought they're having experience with this. So I want to make sure I'm redirecting you to the right people or having you talk to them. But Joe Holly's using it, Clayton's using it, Dustin's using it. I got an interesting email last night, as you saw from I think I sent ahead to you from Tom Collins in in Cleveland, and there are pros and cons. So I just want to say, is there anybody there that's having great success and they're happy with what they're doing so far? I'll pitch it to you, Rob. How's things working out for you in Columbus?
I would say we're pretty happy with how it's going. There's one of the things that's been a challenge for us is we're 3 adult healthcare systems and they go to all 3 systems, and getting 3 systems legal teams to get through data use agreements has been a long process. So we're just now starting to get the more concrete data, but a lot of the anecdotal data and just the times to administrations and times to scans and all that, sort of the surrogate markers, those do show improvements versus hospital time. So
how about the cost? How do you pay for it?
So I'm really lucky. It doesn't cost me a penny. And the reason it doesn't is one of the healthcare systems championed this. That's their truck. They pay for the APP and the CT tech. They then hire 2 of our paramedics and reimburse us at the overtime rate so that they're backfilled on the street. And then we have a hand in helping them select which paramedics are eligible to ride that truck.
Yeah.
And one of the wake effects of that has been just stroke education in general. So now I have some champions in the department. We run the truck 12 hours a day. So when they go back to their regular stations, I would say in general, probably our stroke recognition and our intensity of stroke management has increased across the department just from that sort of wake effect of being super involved and champions of stroke. So,
Rob, you're saying it's 12 hours a day is it's not 24/7?
It's not, and that was done for a couple of reasons. One, it felt like it was sort of a natural comparison should we need it. So it's 7A to 7P. It was also done a little bit for volume. It also solves a little bit of a staffing issue. We have a different staffing requirement at night versus days. And so it gets those two paramedics back in the rotation for the nighttime staffing as well.
Let me ask you, and everybody else has this, the same question that we're facing. Just first, let me start off by saying South Florida, with Peter and some of the other folks down this way, we're pioneers in stroke and, setting up the Florida Stroke Registry, which has been really helpful. And what we found is taking patients bypassing primary stroke centers to go straight to comprehensive actually resulted in a decrease in 911 to TPA, a tremendous decrease by the order of a couple of hours, a decrease of 911 to endovascular, and dramatically improved both morbidity and mortality for stroke patients. So how do you choose where to put these things? And then how do you regulate it? Is it part of the hospital? Is it part of the EMS system who bills for things? Like, these are some questions we're exploring, because we do have a partner in Florida where they don't necessarily have a lot of comprehensive stroke centers, and where this could be a useful tool in certain areas.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit lucky in as a metropolitan city. We have the three health systems each have a thrombectomy capable facility. So essentially I have three comprehensives. Our regular EMS protocol does bypass. We use the LAMs, so 4s and 5s bypass for the comprehensive. The stroke truck itself is somewhat centrally located. We track those times. So we operate that aspect like an EMS system. So it's the EMS side that keeps track of them. We're maybe a little bit unique to some. So we're an initial dispatch as part of the EMS call. They're wired into our system. They're in our CAD. They're part of our locution. All of that sort of happens spontaneously. Our city is not as spread out as some of you. So I'm just looking here at some numbers because I wrote this down before the call. So our EMS on scene to our stroke unit on scene averages about an 8-minute difference. And usually that washes itself out pretty well. Operationally, a long time ago, we just landed on, once the EMS crew gets the patient out of the residence or wherever they're at to the back of their truck and begins their assessment, if the stroke truck's not within 10 minutes, you probably should keep on going to the hospital. But that was a number we just kind of picked out of the air, and it seems to have worked a little bit. It did take a little bit of education for EMS to say, hey, it's not the time to handoff that you should be worried about. It's the time to CT and ultimately the time to needle. And so once they got comfortable with the fact that as soon as the truck showed up, they were getting scanned and they were immediately handed off, I think that happened a little bit.
You just said that's something that's critically important, and we don't always recognize that arrival at a brick building is not necessarily arrival at treatment.
Right.
Yes.
So, which is why it worked out that driving further for us actually decreased 911 the treatment, because places we were going to were higher volume and much more efficient internally. So actually, for the door to a treatment at those locations was so much less than the door to treatment at other places that it more than accounted for the extra drive time.
Yeah. Let me.
So I only know from one of my systems because of the data sharing, but I do know from the biggest system that our time to lytics is about 7 minutes faster in the field versus the hospital so far. But that is admittedly an incomplete data set right now.
Thanks.
Let me run down the road to Cincinnati, and you have it in the region. When you say the region, does it go out beyond the city of Cincinnati? Was it Dustin, right? Dustin, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Yes, so ours was also hospital funded. My complaint is, it has helped. We've definitely demonstrated that people have gotten TPA faster and that we've had better outcomes. The thing cost $2 million. And I think if you divide the $2 million out by the life years saved, there are probably some better places we could have spent that in pre-hospital support of life. But that wasn't an option. The $2 million was donated specifically because they wanted the hospital to have a giant billboard That's essentially what they got. They bought a giant truck and put the health system name on the side of it. And that's how it's funded. So it's definitely not fire department tied. There were some pretty big politics. Some of you are aware of some of my union issues. We had some pretty big politics with the fight between that, and the city still does not allow it into the city itself. So it's primarily into it's dispatched into county areas where the fire departments have been much more willing to accept it. Transport times within the city don't really need it anyways.
Can you talk about the political issues? Because that's part of the problem is we want to know what the issues are. So what were the political issues?
Well, because ours is healthcare system funded and it's a large ambulance with a healthcare system name on the side of it, and we're entirely fire-based EMS in this region. The large union immediately came out with, this is healthcare system trying to take over 911.
Then the question comes down to, they only transport to their own hospitals versus huh?
No, it is agnostic.
All
And
right.
actually about 50% of them go somewhere else.
All right.
Can I ask you a little bit different question? And just, it might reveal a little bit of my bias, which is for people with this most severe strokes, endovascular, does this turn out to be like sort of what I call an attractive nuisance where, yeah, your 911, the TPA is faster, but your 911, the cath lab, which makes the real difference in those subsets of severe strokes, is actually longer. Is that happening in your systems that you utilize?
It hasn't, because that was our concern from an EMS perspective. So we watched the data on that. We have very rigorous protocols about that. The 911 ambulance crew never waits on this unit. If this unit is not there when they're ready to roll off the scene, they roll to wherever they would normally roll. It is 24/7 though. It has a limited radius it can effectively get to. They are equipped to deal with either situation. So we have not seen prolonged anything. It has benefited some people, just not enough to justify the cost in my mind.
Thanks, Dustin.
I don't think we've prolonged either. And to Dustin's point, the politics always plays, right? So you wouldn't believe how long. So we have all the health systems logos plus fire's logo on the side of the thing. There literally was months of battling on the size of the logos and all of that. So it is interesting. And obviously, from the hospital's perspective, it's a concern about market share and whether that shifts market share somehow. So
I have a quick question. I have a quick question for you guys. If you follow the money, normally, that answers a lot of the questions here. Is it true that the TPA administration is what they're billing for, the 10K? Is that where the source of the revenue is coming from? Do you guys know that?
Entertainingly, Dr. Intevi, on our end, the actual pre-hospital part of this is money to lose. They're not actually billing. They haven't been able to, we have a very interesting set of lawyers and they have not been able to figure out an appropriate way to bill. So our system is actually eating the cost of the TPA right now.
Wow.
Wow.
And that comes down to our quandary is this EMS, in which case it's hard to bill for this, or is it hospital-based, which now it's a mobile clinic, but then how does it integrate with EMS? That's what we're looking at from a regulatory
So
standpoint.
I'm told on our side that it appears as a hospital registration once they register in the back of that truck. I could not tell you whether they're breaking even or losing money on that deal. And because it is one hospital system, when it goes to the other, it probably comes down to who submits quicker as far as like the first scan and the first consult and all that. And I don't have any answers on that.
Okay, I want to go to other people. Just one quick question though for you, Rob, is how many comprehensive stroke centers do you have there?
3.
They have
one in each adult healthcare system.
That's in the city of Columbus, which is about, I think, the 13th or 14th largest city in the United States.
14th.
Yeah. And so I just want you to know, because they have 2 in the entire country of Ireland. Okay, so which is just what that perspective is Mick is saying there. All right, and then you got 5 and John says he's got 5 in Portland. So, okay, Clayton, let's go. And how can you weigh in here?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the same points. It's been a big political football. The idea that they could launch this great new truck out there. Some of our local politicians have gotten heavily involved, and some of them have been personally involved in their families with stroke patients. And they see this, and it obviously has a lot of kind of political sex appeal, so they jump out on it. LA County overall is 4,400 square miles, and we have 1. We also have a total of 54 stroke centers, of which 24 are thrombectomy capable or above.
How
So
many are
um,
thrombectomy?
for total,
Four,
24 of
okay.
our hospital, out of 77 hospitals, 54 are at least primary. And we have 24 that are at least thrombectomy capable. So the biggest thing for this is if it happens to be in your vicinity, it's pretty good. It's very good at picking up the patients that were falling out of the LAM score, but actually have a large vessel occlusion and being able to redirect those patients to a comprehensive stroke center. But we've had a lot of issues of them being able to share their scans in a timely fashion over. So a lot of the scans end up getting repeated. Sustainability is a problem. And then the cost is the biggest problem. It has definitely made a difference in some patients' lives, but the cost per difference is pretty extreme. And we think that there may be other ways that the system should spend its money.
So you got 4,400 square miles and then you got one truck, right? And then, so what are the, let's say the range of response intervals?
So we have it doesn't operate 24 hours a day. It operates right now about 12 hours a day, or maybe even a little bit less. The reason they do that is the number of strokes in the middle of the night is much lower.
Right.
Been shared among multiple departments. So in LA County, there are 28 different fire agencies that provide EMS. There are about 4 or 5 different ones that touch this. All of us use different radio frequencies, different mobile data computers, different dispatch centers. So it gets very complex, and this unit, wherever it's deploying, has to be monitoring multiple frequencies and being able to tell us that when they're available or not available. But they're integrated in based on geolocation into our dispatch for stroke. And they make it in on probably a third of the stroke calls that they respond on, because they're with LA traffic and just distance, they just don't make it.
Before I
Can I
go
ask
to
a
Rob,
question?
John, did you have any questions? Okay, go ahead. Yes.
So, and we don't have one in Nashville. As I've looked at the data, and I'm not an expert in this, are we sure, or is anybody sure, that adding TPA to mechanical thrombectomy provides a significant benefit, or a significant enough benefit to justify doing all this? I mean,
You are
there
now
two large
speaking to my
studies.
bias, Corey.
I'm sorry?
I said, you're now speaking directly to my bias, which is why I was, yes,
Yeah, my
that's what I'm worried
bias too
about.
right there.
I don't know if Amal's still here, but there are 2 studies that I know of. One is a Chinese study and one is another study published in JAMA in the past year. And neither showed a benefit to adding thrombolysis to thrombectomy, although adding lytics doubled the number of intracranial bleeds.
All right. Rob, you want to pop in on that? Rob Dunn? Ooh,
I was just saying that I think I'm in the same boat as Ken. Now, I again am in a very an area that is dense with comprehensive or thrombectomy capable centers. So I think that obviously makes a difference. And I had kind of a technical question as well that Clayton kind of talked about, you know, the sharing of the scans. I mean, having to repeat somebody's scan sounds kind of crazy after they had one done already. I mean, you know, my scans go directly to my interventionalists right now at all of our hospitals. And I'd worry about the interface piece. I mean, you know, to me, I think the bang for the buck is getting the patient to the place where they can get the most comprehensive care the first time.
All right. David, what do you want to comment? What do you want to comment on?
So we had looked at this, and I'm going to be a little blunt. I think stroke units are stupid for my organization. It just doesn't work. We tell them when the new AHA guideline says you should drive to the highest level stroke center available, even up to 45 minutes in a suburban area. And the reason why is because thrombolytics don't work for big lots. You have all this issue with cost. You have all this issue with online on-scene delay. I just think it's a bad idea. I think it's a really bad idea for most agencies. Now, there may be rural agencies on a hub and spoke where that may work, but I just don't think it's a great idea. And then the other issue is, why are we using TPA? Why don't you use TNK, Tenecteplase, one squirt and you're done. No drip, no bolus, less errors. Doesn't make sense.
We've actually transitioned to TNK in our truck.
Yeah.
So I think that the one remaining question in some respects, I think here for Ken, is that there are places where there may not be that kind of access. So should we go to them? Maybe that's even a worthwhile gesture from one point of view to say, hey, there is something that needs to be fixed here. So that's the thing. And we're talking to a bunch of Metro people here.
So
I think-
so really where I, looking at this, understand my bias is go to what was just heard from Rob and others, go to the highest level of care within a reasonable distance. But there's certainly parts of Florida where there's not high level of care within a reasonable distance. And if you're going to call in a helicopter or something like that, could a unit like this sort of triage those cases? Because you don't need to be at a comprehensive if you have one of these tiny perforating vessel strokes. Really, all you can do is TPA. And we all know that the various stroke scales are imperfect.
Sorry, interrupt you. TNK, right?
Yeah.
But let's
Aerobatics.
yeah, but let me here. I'm going to give this to you in even a broader perspective, because that's why I wanted to bring this out. We're all used to our metro areas, but Mick, tell us a little bit about your situation. Could this be useful for you for some reason? I mean, probably we should go to your salaries first in terms of better use of the money, but tell them your situation. You got two hospitals that are very far apart, right, that do the embolectomies, correct?
So yeah, there's two comprehensive stroke centers, and the same kind of applies for STEMI. There's only about 5 places that are acute PCI centers in the country as well. So I'm in this kind of sliver of geography, which is too far away for the EMS truck to drive directly to the PCI center. They're all told, go to your local hospital, which is us. We get licensed for STEMIs here, but then when you ask them to transfer on, the receiving PCI center said, no, hold them there and just wait. From a stroke perspective, it's even worse. They come here, they get licensed, and we're then trying to transfer. They may have traveled 70 miles or 80 miles to get to us, and then they have to go and repeat that 70 miles backwards and add another 70 miles to get to the stroke center. So there's 2 in the country, one in Dublin and Beaumont, which is kind of near the airport, and one in Cork, which is the extreme south of the country. And the rest of the country is completely void. So it could be a 5-hour drive in some places to get from Letterkenny to the comprehensive center in Beaumont in Dublin. And I'm not sure.
Put into perspective that, when you say 70 miles, it's not a 70 miles at 70 miles per hour, right? So
no,
it's a more difficult territory to cover. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and somebody's talking about a helicopter then. So we actually don't have a helipad either. I've tried to get a helipad, and the powers that be in my hospital built a small little porta-cabin unit on the site that I identified for the helipad. I'd spent 25 grand in getting the aviation company to come down to do an assessment, to assess the flight paths, and then without knowledge, somebody went and put this porta-cabin there. So that plan is destroyed now. I can't do that, and there's nowhere else to put it. Yeah, so I'm looking at this situation, trying to figure out which way we would go. I obviously don't make national calls on whether we'd have a stroke ambulance. I don't know whether that would be a benefit or not.
I'm just throwing out the in a way, the purpose of this call this talk, it has to do with situations like yours that Ken's talking about, those areas where, is it going to be worthwhile to catch those people in some of the more difficult areas, that kind of thing. And they're not necessarily rural. They're just, there's not a lot of resources around them, just like you. Okay. So, all right, Ken, anything else that you want to hear or talk to anybody about or hear from?
That was really helpful. And it's kind of what I was suspecting, that, it's going to be local. It's going to depend on your local resources, the local geography, or stroke centers. I am a little concerned, like Corey mentioned, that, this focus on giving TPA, is that really the focus that needs to be? I see the value in one of these things as more as less of giving TPA and more of as a triage, an accurate triage system to rapidly get somebody on the road to a comprehensive. So you don't have to send everybody by helicopter to comprehensive, one of those areas that's far from there. What we do see in places where right now if you too far to go straight to a comprehensive, they go to a primary stroke center, and that adds 2 to 3 hours for interfacility transfer delay. Whereas this could do that in the street and minimize that interfacility transport delay. That's where I see the value.
Got it. All right.
Paul, can I
Hey,
make
question for
one
Ken.
last comment?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and Ken, I'll send you this, but there was a study called RaceCat, which was published a couple of years ago now. And essentially it was in Catalonia, where they either went, it was all rural. So they went to the local center, got TPA, and then drove to the comprehensive center. But they had very, very fast door in, door out times. They were much shorter than we would see here in the US. And their outcome, their MRS at 90 days was no different, PSC versus CSC. Mortality wasn't any different either. So I think that what they showed is that effectively, if you have a good cooperating system, obviously it's a universal healthcare system, there's no competing hospitals. I'll send you the PowerPoint, but I just think it just demonstrates it's all about the system operating effectively rather than anything else. So I thought it was a good study.
Another
Yeah,
question.
that is.
Ken.
You just described the role I would suggest for the mobile stroke, is to be that rural center or even drive to a place and do a rapid triage, start the TPA and get them on the road to the comprehensive.
Yeah, but what
That's
about
right.
you in the rural areas where you're so far away, though? It's going to take a long time to get the unit to them unless you got a ton of them. Isn't this a better, wouldn't like a telemedicine strategy be better for that triage?
Yeah, you still need that CAT scan. That's for that area.
No, but until you have enough to blanket an entire rural area, how can you move the time interval?
It's a good question.
Ken, are you thinking about this from the perspective of South Florida or an entire state system?
No. This was one of the partners we have in the area. No, South Florida, I think we found the right answer, which EMS triage is straight to comprehensive. And we've already have great data that shows that's the right thing to do. This is for one of our partners in a less resource-rich area. They got some big donors to give them money for this, and they're looking to see if it's feasible to pull off. So I wanted to get the expertise of this group to help give them some guidance.
I just want to support what Angus was saying. When you think about it, using an iPad as both a screen to use, but also as your interface for telemedicine, you can have a neurologist, a stroke neurologist, looking at the patient and making a decision based on a very quick exam, essentially in every unit in your system, versus trying to disperse these TPA eligible stroke units for a couple of $1 million a year in a rural area.
Yeah.
My bias.
And then you can plug Rob's brainwave thing into it, and you'll have your answer.
Yeah, you should add that brainwave thing, by the way, Paul. That was another good talk.
Yeah, exactly right. So and they detected nothing when Rob tried it on me, by the way, I want you to know. I argued that it was just going too fast. They couldn't pick up on any of that. That's what it was. So, all right. Well, Ken, I hope this helped you out with what you asked for me. So, all right.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate your input.
Do you want me? Oh, that's a good question. Do you want me to pursue this further by doing a who's using it kind of a what's it
No,
called?
I think it's a good place to start. I have what I need now. Thank you.
All right, good. Okay, so I don't need to pursue this any further. That's all I wanted to know, because I want to make sure you're.
Hey, Paul.
Yes.
This is Joe Holly. One more thing to add.
Yes.
So Ken, the stroke unit here is staffed by the neurology group, who admits to all three of the main hospital systems in Memphis. And part of their selling point is that once these patients are evaluated in the stroke unit, they are directly admitted to the hospital on the neurologist service. So they don't even stop in the ED. They go either straight to the lab or they go straight up to the stroke unit, and they're admitted directly to those physicians. So just throwing that out as an administrative streamlining idea.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. I'll bring that up.
Okay.
But Joe, let me ask you the same question. Is your truck a hospital truck or an EMS truck?
So the stroke ambulance was purchased by a grant. It is owned by a nonprofit. It is embedded in our dispatch and EMS service and is has signage on it from all three major hospital systems. So it's very neutral.
Thanks.
Right. Well, this is a really good, all these discussions are really grew a little bit. One of the things I wanted to have was have Ben Weston on to talk about, achieving equity in patient care out there. And, but I think it's so late in the day that it's just, one, we couldn't get it done, and two, it'd be a disservice to him. So are you okay with doing it next week? Is that be okay with you, Ben?
Yeah, no problem.
Good. And then what were you correcting me on? I want to make sure I understood what you needed me to do, or is it okay what I put in there for last week's, for this, for your presentation?
You asking me?
Yeah, you sent me an email just now, which I didn't get a chance to read.
Oh, no, that was just your question about the journal. No, nothing corrected.
All right, fantastic. Okay, good. Oh, yeah. I need to plug you in with Josh Hartman. I'll talk, Josh, will you have some time to talk in about, say, half an hour, Josh Hartman?
I gotta jump off at 1, but yeah, afterwards. Yeah, give me a call afterwards for sure.
Like about 1:30 or something like that?
Eastern? Yeah, no problem. You got
Good.
it.
I gotta talk about like 3 things, but one of them would remind me is Ben Weston. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
And then Gary, let me just another sort of thing I have to square away. Josh Gaither. So first of all, hi, good to see you, Josh. You must be getting ready for your meeting, right? Hopefully most of it's out of the way so far, right? So you're doing okay on that end, correct?
Yeah,
Josh?
no, looking forward to our January meeting down there in Florida with y'all.
Okay, anything new happening in tech? I have to talk. Oh, let me just throw this out at you. Do you remember at our meeting, there were Abdo Curry came? He's from France and he is the head of the European Society of Emergency Medicine. He was the president when he was there. I don't know if you remember him, came to the meeting with us in Florida. But anyways, he was, I'm gonna send you an email. He sent me an email saying, is it too late to get on the program? And I wrote back and I went right back to him saying, yeah, it is, but Josh, can you handle this? Is that okay if I send that to you? Would I put you in an awkward position?
I'm happy to respond to them. We unfortunately a lot of great ideas that come up, but a little too late to make it onto the program. But yeah, send them my way and I'll take care of that.
I'll make it clear, yeah, but I just thought, we ought to at least keep the relationships there and at least say we were paying attention to them instead of just saying no. Right? All right, good. Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
I don't want to add to your workload. That's awesome. Anything happening in Tucson that we should know about?
Just like everybody else, too much RSV and flu and not enough hospital beds to manage it. So wait times and lots of boarding.
Is there anything that comes to mind, by the way, for you that you learned particularly this year? Since you're a program director, you're attuned to that kind of thing.
No, I think the list that folks offered up earlier was great. It's certainly been a great value to have these webinars.
Yeah, okay. And then I'm going to ask you, we're going to probably try to switch this to next year. What I'm looking to do is to put this on at maybe well, it depends. Your time changes all the time. But if I said 3:30 Eastern, would that be a problem for you? Because that would be either 12:30 or 1:30 for you, right?
Yeah, we have standing. The reason I actually can't be here most weeks is we do have standing fire department meetings on Tuesdays, which makes the time a little difficult. But the noontime works great. A little after that gets a little harder.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's then we're thinking about is that maybe 3:30 Eastern might be the way to go. All right. And then we'll give it a try. I think there's so many people like you that can't get on because of these standing meetings that they have. So I'm just going to look in the afternoon. As long we may lose some of the Europeans, but it's going to be 8:30 for Mick, but he's okay with that. And I'm going to have to talk to Pierre, who comes on pretty regularly. And Fiona was on. I guess she had to jump off. So that's it. Anybody else want to plug in anything? John, Drew, anything you need to let us know about? Thank you very much, Josh. John, Drew?
Yeah, there was a preprint study on basically the 3 drugs that are available for COVID. And basically, as we all suspected, number 1, Paxlovid was the best, followed by Remdesivir, followed by Nirmatrelvir. I butchered that name here as well. The other one, as we all suspected, is that the rebound is higher than with published studies, around 15%. And I'll send the references when I find them again here as well. Ebola,
Yeah,
Ebola's
what-
dying. Go
yeah,
ahead.
hang on for 1 second. Maybe I'll just have you give a more formal presentation tomorrow, or next week, okay? Just like I'm gonna do with and try to, just table it till next week, and then you could get it in more detail and have more perspectives on it. What are you gonna say about Ebola now that I interrupted you?
Yeah, Ebola is basically quieted down. The real reason for the emphasis of the medication is that we're losing our monoclonals. BA.5 is only 20% with the BA.1, BQ.1 and 1.1 being, at least in the United States. I don't know what it is in Ireland, Mick. It's around 70 to 80% right now as well. So we're losing the monoclonals until they develop a new monoclonal as well.
Yeah.
Back to you, Paul.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that what Ireland did just still blows me away is that in terms of number of people vaccinated and boosted has been well in excess of 95% for anybody over 13 or 14 mix, something like that. They did a
5.
fantastic job over there.
Aged over 5, Paul, but we just don't have the access to Paxlovid. All the stuff we're making and it's made here is exported out to all you guys who've got money to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, the flu vaccine has a good match, at least in the United States, with the current strains, which is
Yeah.
H3N1.
I have to say the flu vaccine has been doing great this year here
Yeah.
because we haven't really been seeing a lot of that. A lot of our RSV in kids, which is causing a problem because we don't have a lot of individual wards or individual rooms for patients. There's 4 and 5 bedded multi-wards, and the kids are being onto high flow Airvo stuff, and which is aerosolizing the RSV and causing more transmission internally. So we're trying to build new sections within and build pods within wards, which is complicating things.
Okay, well, listen, it looks like it's the end of the hour here. I appreciate everybody's input. This has actually evolved into some good discussions today. I liked it a lot. John Kramer, anything you had add before we let you go? Oh, okay. I guess we may have lost it. I think everybody's dropping off, but there is a question, John Jew, in case you have to get off, is that he wanted to know, New York City, Glenn was asking, what's the approximate flu vax efficacy? I'm thinking the way I'm hearing it's probably above 80%. And I bet you in terms of hospitalizations, it's probably way down and it's much better.
Yeah. I don't have exact numbers, Paul, but it's very, very high. I've never seen this high in the last decade. So the match is good.
Why don't you say when we bring that up as part of your
Yeah.
topic next week, okay? So flu vax efficacy, okay, got it. But I tell you, the hospitalizations are way down. Although people are now saying in some reports that we have a lot of hospitalizations in the United States, but that's probably people who didn't get back, I suspect, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What's also helping us, ironically, with my ED hat on, is the phase PCR. In other words, when you get a COVID PCR, you're getting a flu and the RSV. And frankly, that's huge from a ED provider. I can tell who's got what usually.
Yeah, and then the big question is sometimes are people using the right technique when they're doing it? That's the only issue I have, is that we got to make sure we're doing that right and maybe do quality assurance about that because it's tremendously helpful if you have that. Okay, well, good. All right, everybody. Well, we'll just see you next week, and we'll see you in December, right? I won't be available till December. All right. So whatever. What's that date? I'm trying to think what it is. The 5th or something like that. I can't remember what the exact date is, or 6th. But we'll see you then. Thank you guys for everything you do on a day-to-day basis. Miss you all. And then someday I will explain the picture that I have in the when I did the invite. If you notice it, I said that the time changes that we might have in Vico Equenza. So remind me to talk to you about Vico Equenza. Okay, I said sometime. It's a good story. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Then and Ken,
Thanks, guys.
Ken's good to see you. All right,
Good
take
to
care.
see you too. Bye.
All right. Oh, hey Ken, did you hear that the document was executed from Peter? I don't know if Peter told you that or not, but we could talk about.
Yeah,
that.
I heard. That's fantastic news.
All right, good. I'll see you
I'll see
later.
you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.